I'm Marty Jeffords. I teach 8th grade language arts at Poplar Grove Middle School. Today we're going to be looking at a lesson in which my students are going to be preparing for the state writing prompt. Prompt writing is very different from just leisure writing because they have to answer to a prompt. This particular lesson started yesterday with my students reading an article on single-sex classroom. As they read this article, they annotated on the in the margins for each paragraph. They annotated just 3 to 5 words what the main idea of the article is. And we did not have an opportunity to reflect on that, and so that's where today's lesson starts. Is we're going to have them reflect in writing on yesterday's article. And yesterday we read the article, Single-Sex Schools, A Good New Change in Our Nation. You read that article yesterday and then you analyzed it by summarizing each paragraph. So today what I want you to do is I want you to respond to that. I heard a lot of opinions yesterday, but we didn't really get a chance to write those down. So what I'd like for you to do right now is think about that article, think about how you feel, think about your opinion, and I just want you to write. Now, as you write, I would like for you to pull at least one piece of evidence from the article. I'd like for you to use a quote sandwich when you pull it. Don't forget our signal phrases up here. Also, try to use one of your forwarding methods. Okay, I want you to either extend it, illustrate it, and you probably are going to need to authorize it as well, if it can be authorized. Okay, so right now, just go ahead, respond to the article we read yesterday. In commenting, I really want my students to focus on how it is that they use their commentary. So I've taught them what I call the Harris moves, which are derived from Joseph Harris. The Harris moves include 2 moves: forwarding, because we always forward information. We can do that in 3 ways: illustrate it, where we explain it; extend it, where the students put their own spin on it; and then authorizing is when they make sure that their evidence is coming from an expert, some sort of a study or some sort of expert in the field. And then the second Harris move is countering for their counter argument. And so these are skills that I want my students to be able to show me as they are commenting on the source material. Okay, go ahead and wrap up what you're saying. I know that most of you are not finished, and that's okay. We can come back to this. So what I'd like for you to do right now is just share with your table what you wrote, okay? Just share with your table what you wrote. I had a huge crush on a boy named Bill, and whenever he was anywhere near me, I turned to Jell-O. For high school, I attended an all-girls school. This allowed me to develop the confidence to speak out in class and share my opinion. If I had attended a co-ed high school, I don't think I would be anywhere near the person I am today, and that's where I stopped. So what about you, Kanaya?
Okay. I said some might say ill single-sex schools, but I believe that single-sex schools could really help us. So I'm basically saying that I agree with this article. For example, in single-sex schools, the test scores are higher than the ones coming from the co-educational schools. These single-sex schools must be doing better in a learning aspect if the test scores are higher.
Very good. Okay, what about you, Greg?
I agree with this article because if the facts are correct, then it shows that a higher percent of students pass and go on to college, as well as being prepared for it. I would like to have whatever chance I can get to getting better grades and going to college. It also states that girls and boys would be taught differently. I would like that because many teaching styles are the same and they are boring. I would like to actually get something done, and I've also heard many stories about people at same-sex schools and how they went on to college and they had a lot of confidence.
Okay, good. Excellent, excellent. So did y'all learn anything from this article, you think? Is there anything that you hadn't thought about before?
That there might actually be a difference in the way that people learn.
Okay, people in general?
Or like different, like boys and girls.
Boys and girls, okay. Had you not thought about that before? Or now that you know it, do you see it in the classroom?
I've kind of thought about it, but I wasn't like in depth of it. Like I knew that boys are more their mind goes every which way. So you have to have something to keep their attention, but I just haven't just paid attention to it.
Okay, very good, very good. Does anybody want to share out loud? You know what? I'd like to hear Kanaya's out loud.
I said some people might think, ew, single-sex schools, but I believe that single-sex schools could really help us. So I'm basically saying that I agree with this article. For example, in single-sex schools, the test scores are higher than the ones coming from the co-educational schools. These single-sex schools must be better in a learning aspect if the test scores are higher.
Okay. Okay. Can I have someone from this table share?
I do not believe what the article states that boys and girls should be segregated by their gender to be true. I think that both boys and girls being in the same classes as a positive rather than a negative. According to Dr. Rosemary, single-sex schools are good new change in our nation. Drawing from the research, one of the key arguments supporting single-sex programs is that they create an institutional and classroom climate in which female students can express themselves freely and frequently and develop higher-order thinking skills. I do not agree with this because you have to learn how to be confident with the opposite sex because in the workforce, there are both boys and girls.
Good. So in that, I heard authorizing. I heard countering. I heard extending. Okay, very good. One from this table, please. Brett, why don't you share yours?
I agree and disagree. Sometimes it can be a problem with boys and girls in the same class because if you like a girl or a boy, you get distracted easily and miss a lot of schoolwork when the teacher is presenting. If it's a single-sex school, you could get easily because it's all boys and girls and you won't get as distracted as you were before.
Okay, very good. One from this table, please.
I said I do not think we should have single-sex schools because in the article, single-sex schools, a change in our nation, it says that our gender, single-sex schools teach like by gender, like what your gender, like how your gender understands the best. And I said, but we need to learn how to understand and explain in both ways, like how each other learns.
Okay, very good. Thank y'all. Y'all did all great on that. All right. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to pass out a second article, okay, on the same topic, but a little bit different perspective. And so what I'd like for you to do, what you're going to do with this particular article, is I want you to read it all the way through without doing anything else but reading it, okay? Then I'm going to put a new slide up there, and you're going to go back through it, and you're going to code it. And I'll have the coding up there, and I'll go over it. But right now, I'm not going to put that up there because I want you to read it all the way through the first time. So as soon as you get the article, please begin reading it. It is back in front. Okay, take one and pass it. Next, I am going to have my students read a second article. In this article, I'm going to have them read it through the first time without doing anything because I really want them to absorb what they're reading. On the second read through, I'm going to have them actually code it with text features such as expert opinion, facts, claim, counterclaim, and anything that they might find in an argument essay. This particular essay shows a different perspective from the essay that they read yesterday. So this gives them a whole new viewpoint on the topic. Okay, so look at your next directions. I want you to do a second reading. Now on the second reading, I want you to highlight sentences, and if you don't have a highlighter, I'll get you one in just a second. Okay, listen to me before you pull out your highlighters. Everyone look up here, please. I want you to highlight sentences that indicate positions the experts are taking on the topic. Okay? Then I want you to underline sentences that state a position the writer is taking on the topic. Okay? So what is that position going to be? What do we call that? They're taking a position. What are they doing? Okay. They're stating what? How they feel. Good. Okay. Double underline the sentence that seems to be the writer's claim. Yes.
Can a claim be a question?
Defendable and debatable. So think about that. Okay. That should answer your question. Defendable and debatable. Okay. So if you find a counterclaim, I want you to code it CC in the margin. Okay, so just over to the side, CC if you find a counterclaim. Now also, if there's any facts in this, I want you to code it with an F, okay, over in the margin. E for examples, and A for authorities. Okay, now what would be an authority? What would be an authority? What makes someone or something an authority? Katie? Okay, an educated someone. Give me an example of what an educated someone might sound like. Sophia?
If it states something that says doctor.
Yeah, Dr. So-and-so. How else might we know it's an expert opinion? What about a study? Would a study be authority? Okay, good. Okay, so on your second read through, I want you to do this. I do want to remind you, a claim has to be what? Defendable and debatable. Okay, so remember that. Well, okay, a claim has to be defendable and debatable. Okay, is a question defendable and debatable? So you have to ask yourself that. Did you find the claim?
Underlining and the highlighting, is that the same thing? Since it's still saying like indicate.
Okay, it can be. It can be because if someone's taking a position on something, it could be an expert that's doing it. Okay, so because you're underlining sentence that state a position. Okay, but you're highlighting sentences that indicate positions that experts are taking on the topic. Does that make sense? So you've got experts, but just because someone has a position may not mean they're an expert. Is there a stance? Someone is saying that this is what they believe.
I think he's saying he likes this.
Okay, where do you think that he's saying that?
Well, that's like what he's mostly talking about. He's saying,
Okay.
like, the good things
Is
about
there a sentence where he says, he may not come out and say, I think, but that this is better than this, or,
I haven't found one.
okay, look in that first paragraph and read it just quietly to yourself and see if you see anything in there that you think might be the claim.
We couldn't find a claim. That there was one, but
Okay, you what?
we couldn't like see a claim
Okay,
because I don't feel like that's the claim.
okay.
Is it?
Why do you think that's not the claim?
Because it's just saying that educators disagree about whether the strategy works.
Okay, so is there anywhere in here where they're taking a stance one way or the other?
You mean like
Well, from reading this article, what do you think this person believes?
that it should?
That there should be a separation? Okay, where do you see that?
It says, it's like right there. Because if it was going against it, it wouldn't have like stated that the grades are going up in different
Okay.
sex schools.
Okay, so, okay, is that a claim that's defendable and debatable, or is that just a fact?
Right here? It's a fact.
Okay, so remember, a claim is not going to be a fact. A claim is going to be a stance on something. So where do you see a stance on something?
The theory, is that a fact?
Not necessarily a fact, no. A theory is that's what someone thinks. That's their theory. This is what they think. Then they have to prove it.
Okay, so that's From Fort Lauderdale.
Okay, so here at Charles Drew Elementary School, outside, about a quarter of the classes are segregated by sex on the theory that differences between boys and girls can affect how they learn and behave. Okay, is that supporting evidence, or do you think that's the claim?
I don't know. It says only that.
Okay, so what you can do now is go through, and anything you think might be the claim, put possible claim. So just put PC next to it. Okay, if you think it might be the claim, just put PC next to it, and then we can go back and decide which one is the actual claim. Okay? So you're saying that critics say there's little evidence of substantial differences in brain development between boys and girls, that dividing children by gender can reinforce entrenched stereotypes. Is that a good thing? Is that supporting the separation of gender? Or what's a stereotype?
The one to like say something, or like no, it's like to say like the boys are shorter than girls, because that's what.
Exactly. So what this is saying is that critics say there's little evidence. So critics of single-sex education, okay, says there's little evidence of substantial differences in brain development. Okay, so I don't think this could be our claim. That could be possibly a counter, couldn't it? Okay, but it's not going to be a claim. You know, I almost wish we could take away the does there, don't you? Because it would make it easier. Because the article does favor separating boys and girls. Definitely. Now, do you find anywhere in here where the author of the article says this is what he thinks? No? Okay, look again and see if you find anywhere in there where the author, you can see that this is what the author thinks. Did you find the claim? Okay. So that's the closest thing we have to a claim in this particular article. Okay? All right, so now what I'd like for you to do is just talk with your table and discuss what you coded, what you highlighted. This article in particular was very hard to find the claim. It wasn't one of those that just stood out to us, but there's definitely, the author of this article is definitely taking a stance on this is, you know, they believe this is better than this. And so discuss what you think was the claim, and also, you know, how does this author support that? So how did you code your article? I just want you to kind of talk amongst yourselves with your table on how you coded your article. Okay?
I underlined does separating boys and girls help students perform better?
Okay, now that's a question. So I know, you know, I almost wish we could not make that a question, because, you know, if it said separating boys and girls helps students perform better in schools, that would be our claim. But because it's a question.
Is it on the back?
Well, in this particular article, the claim is not one that's cut and dry, okay? The article is making a stance and making a point. And so if we were to think in terms of what is the article saying, it's basically saying that students divided by gender is improving academic performance, okay? That's basically what this is saying. And so this would be the closest thing to a claim that we have, okay? When we read the article, don't you get the sense that this person is for segregation of boys and girls in the classroom? And so there is a stance, it's just there's not a set claim. It's kind of difficult. This is kind of a difficult one, okay? All right, y'all discuss the other things, the supporting details and expert opinions and, you know, the facts. This particular article is very pro separation of boys and girls. And so this right here is saying educators disagree about whether the strategy works, okay?
No, I meant
So, oh, I'm sorry. This one, yes. Okay, that's the one that everyone's talking about. And the article answers that question, and it answers it in favor of separating, but because this is a question, it's not really in the definition of what a claim is. It's not a claim, but it's what the article is answering. Okay, is there an expert example in here where someone who is experienced with this talks and gives their,
Well,
okay,
the National Association for Single-Sex Public Education.
okay, good, that would definitely be an expert,
And then that principal.
okay. And why would that principal be an authority?
She knows a lot.
Okay, how is she experiencing it?
She is experimenting on Angela and Angelina.
Okay, the two different, having a single sex, a boy classroom and a girl classroom. Okay, good. After analyzing the two articles, having my students use close reading strategies and then write in reflection on the two articles, the next thing I did was I presented them with a prompt similar to one they would see on the state writing assessment. First, I asked them to identify any words that they did not understand, any unfamiliar words, and I had my students write those down, and we discussed what those words meant. Secondly, I had the students really look at the verbs and what is this prompt asking us to do? What is it we are going to have to do? And then lastly, I had them take the prompt and write it in their own words. I wanted them to take ownership of the prompt and make it theirs so that they could truly understand what it is that they were being asked to do. Okay, so you've read the two articles. We read one yesterday. We've read one today. You did 2 readings on both articles. Now, this is a writing prompt, and this is a prompt similar to what you might see on the state writing assessment in February. So let's look at this particular prompt, and then I want to discuss it. Okay? So the prompt is, write an argumentative essay that supports the idea that single-gender classes is in the best interest for students to be socially and academically successful. Be sure to cite evidence from both texts to support your argument. Follow the conventions of standard written English. Okay? That's very much so a prompt that you could see on the state writing assessment. Now, my first question is this. Which words are confusing? In that prompt, which words are confusing? Is there any word you don't understand, you don't know what it means? McKinley? Okay, conventions. Good. Let's keep that in the back of our mind. Anything else in this prompt that you don't understand what it's asking, or you don't know what the word means? Brett?
The word
Academically? Okay. Okay, that's fine. Academically? Conventions, academically? Yes, ma'am.
Follow the conventions of standard writing English.
Okay, good. That's the same thing. Okay, anything else? So we've got write an argumentative essay. Do you know what that is? Okay. That supports the idea that single-gender classes is in the best interest for students to be socially and academically successful. Be sure to cite evidence from both texts. Okay, so let's talk about first academically, because that was one of our words that we were confused about. What does academically mean? What's academics, Brett? Yeah, what you study, okay? Okay, so socially, we know that's social. You guys have got that down pat. Okay, so socially and academically would mean social and with their education. Okay, now the conventions of standard written English. That's grammar, usage, and mechanics in a fancy way. Okay, that's just a fancy way of saying write well. Okay, punctuation, your word use. Okay, so does that make sense? Okay, now what are the verbs asking you to do? Where are the verbs in this? Write an argument essay that supports the idea that single-gender classes is in the best interest for students to be socially and academically successful. What is the verb in that sentence? I heard someone say it. I think. Write. Yeah. So you're going to write. Yeah, that easy. Write an argumentative essay. Okay. Now, what is the second sentence? What does the verb say in the second sentence? Cite. What does that mean?
Quote sandwich.
Quote sandwich, okay. To say what did you say, Kanaya? What you got your evidence, where you got your evidence. Okay. And then follow the conventions of standard written English. What does follow? What's a simple word for follow? Do. Okay, do, exactly. Okay. So what I'd like for you to do right now in your writer's notebooks, and we just have about a minute left, I want you to take this prompt, all these fancy words, and I want you to put it in your own words. What is that prompt asking you to do? Right now, just under what you've already written today, I want you to put that prompt in your own words. Take out all those big words and just write it as you, what do you think it's saying in your own language? Abigail, will you share what you've read? Even if you haven't finished, just share what you've read so far.
Write an essay that holds up the idea of the single gender classes in the best way for students to be interactive and academically smart. Be sure to look up your evidence from both articles to hold up your argument.
Good, okay. Let's have
Laura?
I said write an essay that supports single-sex schools better for students to be able to socialize and get good grades in their study. And then be sure to look at evidence from behind.
Okay, good. All right, I need one more. One more in your own words. McKinley, will you share yours, please?
I said write an essay that uses your opinion about whether or not single-sex schools are necessary in order to be successful. Be sure to use reasons for why or why not you think they would be.
Excellent. Okay. So that's what we have to do with prompts. When we have to bring the language to a point where we understand it. And so when you look at a prompt and it's got all these big fancy words, don't let it scare you. Okay? Break it down and put it in your own words. Okay? What is it really asking me to do? Okay, tomorrow we're going to take this and we're going to go a little further with it, and that we're actually going to write an essay answering this prompt. We didn't have time to write to the prompt today. We will do that over the next couple of days. So tomorrow we will pick up with actually beginning their essay and making sure that they do answer the prompt, making sure they pull in their evidence. And after we have our rough draft completed, the next few days will be spent fine-tuning it, revising it, and making sure that they are ready to publish their writing.